Wrestling Omakase brings you a full course meal of all of Japanese wrestling, men's and women's. Join me, a Japanese wrestling fan for over 20 years, along with a rotating cast of equally knowledgeable co-hosts as we cover everything from New Japan and Stardom to Noah, All Japan, DDT, Tokyo Joshi, Mari Gold, Sendai Girls, Dragon Gate, GLEAT, Ice Ribbon, and even more stuff. If you're a fan of Japanese wrestling and you want coverage of the entire scene in one podcast, check us out right here on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network each and every week. Get us wherever you get podcasts today.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Ballot, the podcast where the conversation begins. I'm your host, Ryan Knightsey, and thank you, everyone, for welcoming me and bringing me on. This is the first podcast episode I'm recording since officially joining the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, so I want to shout out that up top and just say thank you, Rich, thank you, Joe, for allowing me to join the network, and thank you all. I got a lot of kind words on The Ballot joining the podcast network, so joining VOW, so it was exciting to come to the team, I guess, and excited to get the show going. So I want to thank everyone up top, but more importantly, we got a doozy of a topic to get to. In some ways, it's hilarious to me that this is the topic of like we're starting out joining the VOW network and we're discussing this wrestler. There's so many other wrestlers that we could talk about. In some ways, this kind of feels like a troll job, but I think that is also the part of the conceit of this show and also the fun of this show, especially with my guests in terms of these caliber of wrestlers, I'll say. So thank you, everybody. Let's start off. We're flying. No, we're not. Before we talk about the wrestler, let's talk about our guest, of course, returning to the show for, I think this is your four-timers club, I think, off the top of my head. Adam Berger, welcome back to the show. The Berger Report returns. Adam, how are you doing?
Great. Welcome to the VOW network, and happy to be here to talk about another new candidate to the ballot, or I guess in this case, he's returning technically, but I'll just put it this way. Neither of us were talking about the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame the last time he was on the ballot back in 2012. So for us, he's a new candidate.
That's fair. I think for a lot of people, I feel like we've heard like Rich and Joe talk about on their Hall of Fame episodes. We've heard none really other people, but some other people have talked about it as well. But just this idea that there has been a resurgence of interest in the Hall of Fame, in the Wrestling Observer Newsletter Hall of Fame. And I think it is probably fair to say, I don't know off the top of my head how many people voted. Actually, I do have a list here. Does it say? There were, well, it doesn't say how many people voted in it, but in 2012 in US and Canada Modern, you needed 154 votes. Whereas now you needed, in 2025, you needed 274. So that maybe gets an idea of how much growth has happened since this wrestler in particular has been on the ballot. So I think you're right. For a lot of people, this is sort of a new discussion, even though, and in some ways it kind of is, because again, this wrestler popped up in 2012, fell off immediately, less than 10%. Obviously, we'll see if that happens again, but I think without further ado, let's talk about it. We're flying. Well, actually, I guess we were already in America. We're going to take a quick pit stop in Spain and then come back over to America, because we are discussing none other than the Hall of Fame or potential Hall of Fame candidacy of Kane. So an interesting topic again to discuss on this episode. Adam, you have a long history with me on this show, where we only discuss wrestlers that are, I don't want to say bottom tier, but lower tier. I believe your first episode was Bray Wyatt. Episode 2, Who was episode 2? I don't remember off the top
It
of
was
my head.
Drew McIntyre, who also fell off immediately.
Also fell, yeah. So the Kane of his day, if you will. Hold on, maybe. And now we're talking about Kane. And we were talking about this a little beforehand. I don't necessarily know if he's the worst. I definitely do think he is of the lower caliber, but I think that's part of the discussion, and that's part of the conceit of the show. Like I said, where part of this is we have to figure out what the case is ultimately. It's to argue the case, you have to find out what the case is. Adam, I know you share the same perverse brain that I do, where you want to learn all the information, how many matches you and I have seen, how much data we comb through to put a case together for candidate like Kane and like a Kane in it. And so I'm excited to get through this episode with you. I guess, like I always do, Adam, I will start off of what is your connection to Kane? What is your relationship to Kane?
My earliest memories of Kane were when he wasn't Kane. My first memory of him is when he was Dr. Isaac Yankem, DDS.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Because I started watching wrestling at like the beginning of January 1995, as a kid. And he came in as Jerry Lawler's evil dentist to battle Bret Hart. So that's my earliest memories of him. And then the next year he transitioned into being Fake Diesel, which was, I remember as a kid being very like confused because it was like, oh, I thought Hall and Nash, they went to WCW. Oh, I was like, oh, now they're coming back. Wow, that's cool. And then it was like, oh, that's not.
That's a completely different guy.
He did not have Kevin Nash's hair. I'll just say that. I think if he had the hair, he might have been able to pull it off. Okay, but he did not have the hair.
Did you recognize that it was the former Yankem, or did you?
No, I did not, because he had his hair was very different. Like as Yankem, he had that weird like blonde perm. He kind of looked like Sid's hair, actually.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
And then he tried to imitate Nash's hair, but he could not pull that off. And yeah, so I didn't, and that I don't even remember how long he lasted. Really, I want to say it was. I think he made it into 90. Did he make it into 97 as Fake Diesel? Maybe like the Rumble or something, like early in the year. But it wasn't that long. It was not that long. It was less than a year, I want to say.
In September 1996, Jim Ross introduced Jacobs as Diesel, and of course Rick Bognar, Big Bognar, as Razor Ramon. They last appeared on television at the 1997 Royal Rumble, where Jacobs was the third to last participant. So, I mean, that's September 96 to the 97 Royal Rumble, which I presume was January. Yeah, January 19th, 1997. That's not that long.
No, it's not. It really stands out, though. Like, it really stands out. Like, that was obviously a very distinctive gimmick. And not for the best, but
hold on real quickly. It does say here in May 1997, Jacobs and Razor Ramon went to, which I assume is fake Razor Ramon here, went to Mexico to work for AAA.
Oh no!
Jacobs lost to Razor Ramon in a loser leaves town match at the USWA, so they left WWE and then went on tour and to AAA and the USWA. That's fascinating.
Yeah, that's very strange. That's very strange.
So,
but that is.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, it's interesting that he had two horrible gimmicks, and then he got the Kane character, which, I mean, you can argue is one of the best and most successful gimmicks that the WWE has ever just created from scratch and given to someone. Obviously, you'd say, the Undertaker's the top one for sure.
Yeah.
But after that, he's definitely in the mix because he just had, two failed roles before that, and then gets into this role of being the Undertaker's evil brother and has this incredibly long career there as the same guy, like the same character for that entire run, which lasts over 20 years, which nobody would have expected, in early 1997 when he was the Fake Diesel after being Isaac Yankem.
And that's also what's fascinating about Kane as I guess you could say a performer, right? Is that, look, when you look at like Jericho as someone, for example, right? Jericho is still Chris Jericho, but his personality will sort of change as well from gimmick to gimmick. Kane, his gimmick and personality, for the most part, I guess, barring corporate Kane, but even then, kind of, is all like, this is all still kind of Kane. It's just like Kane has a mask and then he doesn't have a mask. You know what I'm saying? Like there isn't like he's a dramatically different person or different personality. It's always still rooted in the same character. It's just different dimensions of that character.
Yeah. And then when he went to therapy with Daniel Bryan,
how could we forget?
To talk to Dr. Shelby, he had to recount everything that happened to him.
Yeah, Kane is a fascinating character in itself. And there's so many different aspects of Kane that we'll obviously get to, I think, in this episode. But there are so many different, I think, goods and bads in his career. And it's a wild span of different ideas. The Team Hell No, the team with X-Pac, the debut against Undertaker and the teaming with Paul Bearer, the Brothers of Destruction, versus DX. There's these corporate Kane without a mask, so many different Kane carrying out a bag that eventually was his mask, which I distinctly remember because I remember there was a DC show I went to, and he had that bag. There's a lot of different shades of the same color, red in particular, but shades of the same color is how it would almost like define Kane as character throughout his pretty much active career of 24 years, I believe, as a character. So extremely long career indeed.
Yeah, and in the biggest promotion in the world for most of that time period.
Uh-huh.
So, and one of the reasons I was interested in talking about him and digging into it.
I want to please address the audience real quickly. Adam asked for this. This is a Berger report coming at you live because this is a pure request from the man himself, Adam. Because previous episodes I said, hey, you want to come on and do Bray Wyatt? Do you want to come on and do Drew McIntyre? You pin the tail on the donkey here and wanted Kane specifically.
Well, there's one. I know what my gimmick is on this show. I've carved out a niche, and
I guess that's fair. And I put you there, and you recognized it, and you're yes-anding me, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it. But the other reason is just because he's had so much longevity in WWE for so long. Every year in January, Dave Meltzer puts out his greatest draws of all time list, which is, for anyone who's not familiar with it, it's an aggregated rank. So I guess I'll explain it this way. Every year, Dave ranks the top draws. I think it's based on who headlined the most shows of 10,000 or more people. And, if the shows are like 20,000, 30,000, whatever, then the guys get
bonus points.
Yeah, they get bonus points. But, if you're number one, you get 10. If you're number 10, you get 1 point, right? And then he aggregates that together for all the data he has going back way into the, early 1900s. And Kane, currently on that list, he's number 40. Mm-hmm. Right behind Antonio Inoki and Steve Austin, who are tied for 38, and one spot ahead of Dano O'Mahony, Johnny Valentine, and Randy Savage, who are tied at 41. So when you see something like that, it's like, okay, that's something, right?
Yeah.
Like that list is not the end all be all because it's essentially about longevity on top. And a lot of it has to do with where you work, obviously. So it's not, so with Kane as an example, he's working for the biggest promotion in the world for, over 20 years. So he has a lot of opportunities to, headline big shows, even if he's not necessarily, the guy who's driving interest in those shows. He might be, the opponent, the other guy, but he's had so many opportunities to do that for so long, over time, it all kind of accumulates, aggregates together. And then, he ends up on on a list like that with the greatest draws ever. So when you see something like that, it's like, okay, I'm interested in this to see, like, is this just an outlier because his longevity and working in WWE for so long is such an outlier, or is there more to that once you kind of pop the hood, dig deeper, break it down?
And I'm glad you brought that up. And obviously, we're going to discuss this way more when we get to the drawing section. But unless we talk about that now first, because we'll talk about that later. But just this idea, because just to set the table, that is the big calling card that a lot of people go to as they go to Dave's massive list of names and sees Kane up there and say, hey, that's pretty good, especially with who he's surrounding. And then it brings up a good amount of detractors as well, of, well, he's there forever. And, you could say that someone that's been there so long, he could be maybe even higher, or at the same time, he was just like a hanger on, like, oh, he's in a bunch of multi-mans that have attendance that high. And in the same exact thing that I think we're definitely going to get to. I have 10 data points of drawing right in front of me to look at. So we have a lot to get to when it comes to that, but it's something that is what the show is we need to look under the hood, look under the mask, if you will, and figure out, is it that he is a draw, or is there aspects to it that sort of hurt his case there? And that's, I think, what's the more going to be the more telling aspect to what Kane is, because I think you and I both agree that that's probably his strongest case in terms of drawing. And I think let's lead off here as we usually do. I think his weakest case is probably his wrestling ability. Personally, I watched a bunch of matches, as you know, Adam, and boy howdy, I kind of forget how bad Kane is. He's not like horrendous as a wrestler, but he is just like he's a guy in the match, and in some respects, it's like fine, but it's also like I would like a little bit more. We can go more into it, obviously, and we will. But Adam, I want to know, what are your thoughts on Kane's wrestling ability?
Kane has some interesting matches for sure. I think I want to be fair about this, because he, as we'll definitely get into later, he is booked in some truly horrendous storylines, and just bizarre matches, like over the course of his career.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's all his fault, but I think he's more of I would say he's like a solid big man, in that he's not, he's better than, I would say, someone like Sid, or great, obviously, like Great Khali or Kurgan, or Giant Gonzalez. You get with those really freaky big guys that are just very slow and awkward. Like he moves, at least when he was younger, as he got older, his knees kind of broke down a bit, but at least when he was younger, he moved like a wrestler. He had like solid agility. He could bump. He could do power moves.
He is, and ironically enough, it works best for him. He is very explosive. I was watching matches, obviously, up until like the 2010s, and this is a guy who's 20 years into his career, and he's pushing 40 probably at that point. He is still very explosive in the ring. He is bumping. He is popping up very quickly. He's moving around, running around the ring, jumping off the top rope and everything still. And it's just like, this guy is very, has a lot of the fundamentals extremely down. And he is an athlete. He is an athletic wrestler, as much as it weirds to say, but compared to all of those other big men, he is an extremely athletic, big guy, in the ring.
Yeah. And he had some of those big show matches he had, like in the late 90s. I would say like in 99. I think it was 99 specifically. They had one match where, like, I think he got gorilla pressed outside. Like, Show picked him up and just gorilla pressed him and yeeted him outside the ring from inside the ring. It was just like a crazy spot. And then they also had that, like, probably like 20 years later or 15 years later. Remember they had that weird technical wrestling match on Raw?
I believe you're thinking of Braun Strowman and Big Show.
No, it was Kane and Big Show. Maybe it wasn't that much maybe it wasn't 2010s, maybe it was like in the mid 2000s, but
Oh,
they had this one random match on a Raw, and they decided to, I don't know why or what the backstory was. They decided to do chain wrestling.
yeah. Yeah.
And Jim Ross is baffled watching this. Like anyway, if anyone hasn't seen that before, you can probably find it on YouTube somewhere. But it's worth watching just because of how like bizarre it is, and Jim Ross being totally perplexed as to why this is the approach they're taking in this match. But I'll say I really enjoyed Kane. I really enjoyed some of his tag teams I really liked. Like I really liked his tag team, obviously with Daniel Bryan. That was a lot of fun. And then and their matches with the Shield, which I think are probably like, I think that might, like, some of those matches might just be his straight up best matches that include like less than 6 people, or I guess maybe they're 6-man tags, right?
Yeah.
So
are they the Shield's biggest rivals?
Probably, yeah, probably.
Who are the Shield's biggest rivals?
I mean, I guess they had that 2-month program with Evolution, but right before they broke up. But I think in terms of frequency, I would say, they probably wrestled Daniel Bryan and Kane more than anyone.
That's what I'm thinking too.
But way before that, though, I loved his tag team with X-Pac. And I really like that storyline where, you know, he kind of made friends with X-Pac because they both got screwed over by Triple H and China. So then they became friends because they had mutual enemies, and then X-Pac kind of gradually humanized Kane. You know, he told everyone to suck it after they won the tag titles that one time. So yeah, also they had an awesome entrance too. I loved like their I love their entrance together. They were just a really cool tag team, and and honestly, I think X-Pac turning on Kane to go back to being like just an annoying heel lackey for Triple H as part of that version of DX at the end of '99. I think that's what killed Waltman's career, because like the WWF audience never liked him again after that. Like he was just kind of, because before that he was like pretty over and pretty popular, you know, like in 98, 99 as like this underdog who was also one of the better workers in the company. And then after that, they were just like done with him. It's like, nah, we hate this guy. He's annoying. So yeah, another just interesting chapter in Kane's career. And he has a lot of chapters.
And obviously, talking about tag teams, can't not discuss the Brothers of Destruction, him teaming up with Taker for also decades as well. He is like, that's the thing I always say about like tag team wrestlers, right? Is that what makes, there are some wrestlers that are really great tag team wrestlers and they're just okay singles guys. And Kane, I think Kane is up there, at least in terms of like WWE fare, because what a tag team does successfully is the classic thing of it showcases the positives and hides the negatives. You're only seeing half of a guy wrestle versus, and pretty much that half you're going to see is all their top stuff. And that's what you got a lot of Kane. Kane is a pretty solidly decent tag team wrestler that is enjoyable to watch and has a plethora of tag teams that work, that get over with the crowd. And then when he gets to like singles wrestling, it's like, yeah, you get the same sort of thing and it's still pretty good. It's a little bit more boring at times for me, at the very least. But it's, it doesn't quite get there in terms of that. Kane is not a wrestler that has any sort of 5-star matches in any real reality. I think I saw that he has 18 4+ star matches rated by Dave Meltzer, and that is only multi-mans, not a singles match.
So I looked at that as well. So I guess let's just get into his work.
Let's get into it, Adam.
Let's just dig into it. So okay, so what we were talking about before is like, he's a good wrestler. He's a solid big man, I guess is how I would put it. Like he's a thing
that I would constantly see about Kane is from other wrestlers is that what makes Kane great is that he can work with anyone. Is that it is a sort of not necessarily an easy night to work at Kane, but it is a night where he can wrestle anybody, and it's not necessarily you're wrestling like his style of match. I don't know if Kane really has a style of match, but he has the ability to sort of be a Swiss Army knife for the company in a lot of real ways. That's what makes, like, I think probably a really good upper mid carder is you're sort of that Swiss Army knife that you can stay around the promotion and help everyone. But go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think your point about like, okay, like what are his best matches or his greatest matches?
What are those, Matt? What are those? Let's look at the list of matches. Here we go.
Well, that's the thing. Like, so Dave rated, again, just using Cage Match, Dave rated 18 matches 4 stars or more. And to your point, they're all like these large team or multi-man matches. It's like
the Rumbles or
it's like Royal Rumbles, Survivor Series matches, Money in the Bank, TLC matches with a lot of, like multiple teams in it.
Yep.
One of the TLC matches was that match where Kurt Angle replaced Roman Reigns in the Shield, and they faced like 5 heels or 5 or 6 heels.
Yep.
So yeah, I think the best. I did look up like what's his best just like
pure singles.
Well, okay, I did that too. But what's his best just straight up wrestling match, like without any gimmicks? And interestingly enough, it's a 6-man tag from 2013 where he teams up with Randy Orton and Bryan Danielson against the Shield.
Yeah.
And so just like and that's what we were speaking about before. It's like, hey, you get him in these tag matches, he can be really good.
Yeah.
Being the big man, kind of the heater, similar to actually Roman's role in the Shield, right? Yeah. So he was good in that role, but then when you get into singles and he has to sell and those sorts of things, that's when it gets a little bit dicier. On Cage Match, so he has 2 matches rated not over 9. And those are the first ever Elimination Chamber match in 2002. And the TLC match, the Shield debut with Ryback and Bryan Danielson against the Shield. So
great match.
Oh yeah, great match. But again, also both of those like gimmick matches. Lots of people in it. Not him, not just him. For his best singles matches, now none of those got 4 stars from Dave or 8 on Cage Match, but we got had some 3.5s here and over 7. One is the again also a gimmick match, the Last Man Standing against Shane McMahon at Unforgiven. So I watched this because I thought how years go by and time, things kind of merge together. I just remember him like putting jumper cables on Shane McMahon's testicles, but that was an angle, like that didn't actually happen in the match. And I also got this match confused with the Survivor Series ambulance match.
Yep, I was constantly doing that in my head when I was like, oh yeah, this one.
Yeah, so this was the one where it was a Last Man Standing match and Kane won because Shane jumped off the Tron. And
this is the one where he sort of like pushes him off the top of the Tron, the trellis.
Well, no, he jumped.
Oh yes. This is that one. Yeah.
This one, Shane just like tried to drop an elbow on him. Kane moved, and then Shane was down for the count, and Kane just stood up and won. So that's his best singles match. After that, it's the Extreme Rules match with Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan's one title defense before he had to vacate the title because of his neck injury, I think it was. That featured the Bryan doing the drop kick off the forklift.
Yes,
I think it was, right? Like that was kind of a crazy spot.
And in hindsight, especially knowing what's around the corner for Bryan.
Not
come on, man.
Probably not the best idea. No, probably not the best idea. It's like your first title defense is against Kane, brother. Like you can take it easy.
Calm down a little bit.
You're also I don't even think they were the main event either. I think the Shield and Evolution match probably went on last. But then after that, it's the 2004 straight up singles match against Chris Benoit at Bad Blood, and I do remember that. I remember liking that match and thinking,
it's pretty solid. It's like I think it went like 3.25, 3.5 or something like that.
Yeah,
it's a solid little match.
Yeah, it's a nice match, but again, that's Benoit as he was on a heater, then coming off those those triple threat matches with Triple
Mhm.
H and Shawn Michaels that were like match of the year candidates.
Yeah. And this is also
The months
Benoit, who
before that.
is famously a great wrestler. So
Yeah, yeah, obviously, one of the best wrestlers of the 90s and early 2000s for sure. And then after that, the fourth one on Cage Match, which Dave does not agree with,
I
is
love it.
the WrestleMania 14 match with The Undertaker,
Mhm.
which I think it doesn't hold up, is what I'll say. But I think at the time, I can't recall if the WWF had ever had a match with like that many finisher kickouts before it. Was that the first time they did something like that?
I mean, there's no way of knowing this. I'm not. I don't think I'm skilled enough in remembering.
Because I don't
Probably not.
like
Um,
maybe they had done something like that. Oh no, I think okay, yeah. In WrestleMania 7, Warrior kicked out of all those Savage elbow drops.
yes.
I
Yep.
think.
Yep.
But so I guess it wasn't the first time, but
That's
it
also like
wasn't.
one-sided too.
Yeah. Yeah, they hadn't done a lot. But in any case, they hadn't done that much.
Yeah.
And also, he was this new character who they were presenting as indestructible, right? So,
Yeah. And what's
and
with all this work rate now? Where's the psychology in that match? Kicking out of finishers? Where's the psychology? What are we doing here?
I mean, I guess the psychology is he's a monster
It's the immovable object versus the whatever.
That's impossible to keep down. But
Mhm.
yeah, it was definitely a memorable match, for that reason. Now it's again doesn't quite hold up quite as well because we see stuff like that a lot, and it's kind of, and if you weren't following the storyline going into it and seeing how Kane was presented at that time period, then it's kind of it does seem like they're just spamming finisher kickouts, but it is like, okay, no, it does fit in with the storyline going on. But so those are his best like just straight up singles matches. So like
and what range of on the cage match? What was the range in terms of numbers? I believe they're mostly around 7 points.
Those are all in the 7 range. Like they're not even high 7s too. It's like low and mid 7s.
It's like it's like capping out at like 3.5 stars pretty much.
Yeah, basically. So he's, I guess, so we say all this to say, like, in terms of a Hall of Fame candidate, like he's not a Hall of Fame level performer or in-ring wrestler, right? And doing my other, but sometimes guys, maybe they're not necessarily the best in-ring guys, but they also maybe they have some other stuff with like promos or charisma or something.
It doesn't kill his case if he, but also at the same time, are we saying that he's a bad wrestler? I don't think he's a great wrestler. I don't think he's obviously that. He's not the worst. You and I have watched worse wrestlers.
For sure. I think, but I was just going to throw in there, like looking at the Observer Awards that I like to do just because they're kind of like a yearbook of what resonated the most in a given year. He has 2 top 5 finishes during his entire career. So he has 2 top 5 in a positive manner. 1998, number 5 feud of the year was his feud with The Undertaker. And then in 2012, he was the number 2 best tag team with Bryan Danielson.
Yep.
So those are the 2 top 5s that he has. Now, when it comes to worst of the year, and I might have missed a couple things here and there, but so there's potentially there's more. I have him with like 28 top 5 like worst of the years. I'm just going to run down these quickly, and I'm going to do it in reverse. Start with the most recent because we remember things the most recent. Number 1 worst match of the year in 2018, teaming with The Undertaker against D-Generation X in Saudi Arabia. 2015, he was the number 1 most overrated, which basically means most overpushed. Also in 2015, number 2 worst feud of the year against Seth Rollins, which I'm struggling to remember who the babyface was in that feud. Because he was corporate Kane then. So like, did
I think that's why it was the worst feud of the year, because I watched their title match. I forget what pay-per-view it was, where he dons the mask once again to no longer be corporate Kane, but now be the Demon Kane.
Oh, okay.
And I was just, and I think even if I recall, even commentary was slightly confused about like, who would be sort of? I guess we're cheering for Kane here.
Oh, did he have like a split personality thing going on?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, that makes sense. So 2014, he was also most overrated. So that's 2 years in a row for him there. He had the number 5 worst feud of the year against Daniel Bryan. I guess people weren't too psyched about him being Bryan's challenger. 2013, number 3 worst match of the year against Bray Wyatt. That was an Inferno match, I believe.
Please,
SummerSlam.
a Ring of Fire match.
Oh,
Adam.
okay.
A Ring of Fire match.
Sorry.
How dare you? At
Okay.
SummerSlam, a terrible match. I think I had like 1 star on it or something.
Yeah.
It was awful.
So 2012, he has a hell of a year in 2012. So he has the number 4 worst match of the year against John Cena. That was when Cena was doing the rise above hate thing, and Kane was like, "No, hate is good."
Yep. And Zack Ryder gets thrown off.
Well, that was the other thing, because in 2014, Kane is both the number 1 and number 4 worst feuds of the year for Cena and Zack Ryder.
For 2012.
Yep, for 2012.
Mm-hmm.
2010, he's the most overrated, again, most overpushed. He got pushed a lot in 2010. We'll get into this a bit when we talk about drawing, but like that was inexplicable to me at the time. I'm like, why is Kane the top guy on SmackDown for like 6 months? Like that was wild. Number 4 worst match of the year, Undertaker Hell in a Cell that year. Number 1 worst feud of that year versus Edge. Number 2 worst feud also for Undertaker. So the 2010 Kane push was not particularly well received.
Mm-hmm.
In 2009, he has the number 4 worst match and number 5 worst feud, both against Great Khali. 2008, he's the number 1 worst feud against Rey Mysterio. I don't remember that at all, so I don't remember what happened. I guess apparently it wasn't good, so maybe my mind's just repressed it. 2007, he's also the worst feud. This one I do remember, against Big Daddy V. Yeah.
Gotta respect Big Daddy V. Come on, he's a former King of the Ring.
Also number 3.
No, he's not.
Also the number 3 worst match that year against Great Khali. So he had apparently quite a few matches against Great Khali in the late 2000s, which do not sound good. 2006, he has the number 2 worst match and the number 3 worst feud, both against Imposter Kane, who was played by a young Luke Doc Gallows. 2004. Okay. 2004 is a doozy because number 1 most disgusting promotional tactic for the miscarriage angle with Lita and Gene Snitsky. It wasn't his fault. Also, the number 1 and number 2 worst feuds that year for against Matt Hardy and Lita, and then against Snitsky. But I think his feud against Edge was worse to me. And I can't remember if that was in 04 or 05, because, it was definitely 05. Because if you recall, that storyline was like Kane wanted to impregnate Lita, and he had to beat Matt Hardy to like have her marry him. So like in kayfabe, he was married to Lita. But then when Lita like dumped Matt because she was having an affair with Edge, like a real affair, the next year, and then Edge and Matt Hardy had their, I guess, shoot and kayfabe feud. At some point, Kane started feuding with Edge, and they were presenting Kane as the babyface because Edge stole his wife, even though the only reason he had her as his wife in the first place was very screwed up from the year before.
These are the sort of things that when people talk about wrestling as a soap opera, these are the sort of storylines that I think people should be discussing.
Oh yeah, like
it's so convoluted and messy and insane that it feels exactly like I'm watching Guiding Light.
Oh yeah, it was bad at the time and bizarre at the time. Like, why are they doing this? Like this is awful. Okay, 2003. again, the aforementioned worst feud with Shane McMahon, who got his testicles electrocuted via jumper cables. We haven't even brought up this yet. 2002, number one worst feud against Triple H, the Katie Vick, the notorious Katie Vick angle. 2001, so here, we talked about his tag team with The Undertaker. In 2001, they were voted the number 2 worst tag team, only because the number 1 worst tag team was who they wrestled in the worst match of 2001, where Kane and The Undertaker wrestled Chronic.
Shout out Chronic.
You know what? I always enjoyed Chronic. I really did. Like, I thought those guys were fun as just like this monster tag team that would chokeslam people. And I am very happy that Lena Cross and Megan Bayne have brought back Chronic's finisher with the double chokeslam. So yeah, just happy to see that. And then in 1998, they number 5 worst match of the year against The Undertaker. I didn't write down which one it was, but one of their matches in 1998 people did not enjoy. So
a lot of bad and a lot of bad, a lot of overrated too.
Yes, but it's because when he's overrated, they're pushing him like at the top those years. Like, people were fine with him when he wasn't, being pushed at that level. But when he's involved in like the world title scene, especially like we're talking 2010, like 2014, 2015, he is like
kind of,
so he's like over a decade into his run at that point. And it's like, okay, why are we like going with Kane on top again? Right. Like he's been there for so long already. But, when we were talking earlier about like, oh, he had that program with the Shield, his tag team with Daniel Bryan.
Which breathes some, like, legitimately the Team Hell No, people, obviously some people didn't like it. A lot of people did like it. Obviously got voted second best tag team of the year that year. It breathed some life into his career.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It definitely helped Daniel Bryan's career as well, because
and his career needed so much help. We can all agree, folks. His career was going nowhere. It only took Kane to turn it around.
Well, it helped him in a way. It helped him like within the context of WWE. Obviously, like to someone like you or me, like, if we were in charge, it's like, yeah, we're pushing this guy and presenting him more like Bryan Danielson in AEW, who just kicks people's heads off, right?
I am joking, but it is also like that's where the yes chant started. Which put him on, helped put him on a trajectory. And also that's where, he was a baby face when he first started, obviously. Then he turns heel. This tag team is what helps turn him back to babyface, which then sets him onto the path. It is the sort of thing that does actually set Bryan on the path to WrestleMania.
Well, because he could have, he wins he wins Money in the Bank 2011. He wins that. That's, the big CM Punk, John Cena Money in the Bank 2011. Bryan wins the Money in the Bank on the undercard of that. And then he wins the title. He doesn't really do anything like after that until
if I recall correctly, he wins off with like Big Show.
And well, he wasn't even I think because it was a Big Show Mark Henry program, and the way he told the story, he wasn't even like, that wasn't planned in advance or scheduled. He just happened to be there, and like Mark Henry was injured and they needed to do something to get the title off him, and they were like, oh, Bryan's here, oh, we'll just give it to him, right? And then obviously, Sheamus squashes him at Mania, and the crowd revolts over that because they really like the guy. So obviously he had a lot of fan support then, but putting him in this tag team with Kane, I think like that got Vince to trust him. I think it got Vince to trust him so it gave him an opportunity where he could still be featured heavily and continue to build that crowd support and that crowd connection and maintain it and grow it in a way that he may not have gotten that same opportunity if he was just on his own. So anyway, I guess to circle this all back, Kane is always best in an ensemble, right? Like, it's not, you don't want solo Kane out there on top, but he could be a valuable contributor, as part of an ensemble.
Yeah, I mean, his working ability, obviously, it ain't the pits. It ain't great. I think he's like perfectly fine. I think what we're saying is completely correct, that he is better in an ensemble because it is hiding a lot of his negatives, but also it can hide some of, he does still big man. So having like a smaller guy like X-Pac, like Daniel Bryan works really well in conjunction with him. He doesn't have he has a lot of famously terrible matches and storylines and stuff. But at the same time, it's like, look, he has 170 matches with a star rating by Dave via cage match. 18 of those matches are 4 or higher, 29 are rated 1 or lower. So it's like, okay, he has more bad according to Dave. Cage match, 319 matches with a number rating, 15 are 8 or higher, 8 matches are 2 or lower. So it's like he has the ability to have matches that people enjoy. Dave doesn't like it as much, but some people enjoy it versus on the cage match users. But again, none of these are also singles matches. He's just like a perfectly competent wrestler. I feel like that's fair to say.
Yeah. He's a competent. Yeah, I think in the grand scheme of things, he is a solid, competent wrestler. I think when you compare him to big men, I think he's like a good big man, but he does have some awful matches.
Yeah.
But most of the time, I guess what we'd say is he has some truly awful matches, but most of the time he's fine. He was fine most of the time.
None of this is going to help a Hall of Fame case.
No, I guess that's what we're saying is, does he have a case to be a Hall of Fame level in-ring wrestler, or can he be considered that way? No, he does not. He does not. But is he, he's not the worst. I'll put it this way. He's not close to being the worst in-ring candidate that we've seen on the ballot, even in recent years, either. So
not even in the region. I would even say that Kane's not even the worst wrestler in the region.
Yeah, probably not. Because what Trish, you think, would be probably a rank below. I mean, he might be the second worst, but yeah.
Yeah, it's not, I'm not saying he's in the top half. I'm just saying he's at the bottom. Yeah, and it's completely competent. It's not going to help his case in any real way, but it's not going to detract. And that's what Kane is. People like working with him. Vince liked using him a lot in a lot of different ways. Obviously, sometimes it worked like a tag team. Sometimes it didn't. Like name C list that Adam read earlier. A lot of times it didn't. I think that also being just like a competent, fine wrestler also lends itself to like people being like, who the fuck cares about Kane? You know what I mean? Like that sort of thing. It's like, yeah, I think that's fair because he's just sort of like a guy that is there, that he is constantly around. Sometimes they need, they're down a bunch of people. We need to push them up to the top. Sometimes we can just put them in a tag team to help maybe develop somebody or focus something. It's just like whatever it needs to do. And some people want to see a star, and Kane was never like a star, but he was always around in terms of wrestling ability.
Yeah, I think it was Raven he did the shoot interview a long time ago where he said, and this echoes your point. He's like, yeah, really great wrestling is great. And really awful wrestling is also great. But Kane was kind of, most of the time, he's kind of, somewhere in the middle. So he's not really standing out too much, except for, again, that laundry list of truly horrible feuds and also just poorly selected opponents. Like Kane versus Great Khali should have just been a non-starter from the get-go. I don't know why they had this feud that went over the course of 2 years, but I don't know. I guess that was Vince in the 2000s.
I would like to think it's Vince being like, Khali needs training and seasoning. Let's put him with Kane because Kane knows how to work people. He can work Khali and get something out of this guy. And never Kane at some point must have been like, putting his hard hat on the thing, being like, I can't do this anymore. This guy. Vince, please don't put me in another Punjabi prison match or something. I can't with this guy anymore.
Imagine being Glenn Jacobs and getting that, like being told like, oh yeah, you're gonna have this long feud with Khali. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, Like it's one of the few moments where I'll feel bad for Glenn Jacobs. All right, let's talk about the drawing power. There's a lot to get to here. I know you and I have a plethora of notes and discussion to get here. So we sort of set the table earlier, and that it is. I think you said he was 40 or something on that list for Dave's. Yeah. As of January of this year, 2026. Kane was ranked 40 at the sort of all-time draw. That data collection that Dave puts together is based off of was it main events or main semi-main events? Do you know? I think
it's just main events but I think it's only looking at shows 10,000 or above. So whoever had the most in a given year. Yeah.
It's just looking at those data points, which is, good in a lot of different ways. Adam, we can flip a coin about whose data gets presented first. But I'll let you, the guest itself, go ahead. What do you have to say about Kane's drawing ability?
So one thing that I did a few years ago, I haven't updated it for obvious reasons. Once I explain what it was, you'll understand. But a few years ago, I wrote a column about who the best pay-per-view draws were of all time in wrestling. And the methodology that I used was I looked at like the comparable event the year before, and then, okay, did it go up? Did it go down? Did it stay about the same? Right.
Comparable being either like the same name or something, the pay-per-view, the same month or whatever.
Pretty much the same, usually the same month or the same name. Obviously, you couldn't always do that. So like if WrestleMania was in March one year, I'm not going to compare it to Backlash the next year or something like that. I'm still going to compare
Roadblock, perhaps.
Yeah. I'm not doing that. So sometimes the months could change a little bit, but generally usually same time period, same like level of event, essentially. Yeah. So one of the things that stood out to me was Kane had, and again, I didn't do straight main events. I looked at like, okay, what could potentially be like considered the drawing match on the show. So sometimes I would give credit to multiple matches, not necessarily just the one that went on last. But for Kane, he had 20 pay-per-view main events. He added 7 more, or at least for my analysis, I had him with 20. And then I had like 7 other ones in the network era. But he had 5 and maybe 6. I'm being a little bit liberal with the 6th one. But he had 5 where the increase year over year was over, like it literally doubled. So it was like 80, 100%. And that's all in 1998. So like the WWF business in 1998 is just through the roof from a pay-per-view perspective, because they do like Austin heats up, wins the title at Mania, has the big angle with Tyson. And then they're literally doubling their pay-per-view buys from the year before. But what's interesting is Kane is in the legit main event of a lot of those shows. So King of the Ring 98, he has the First Blood match with
Austin.
With Austin, where he wins the title and then loses it back to him the next night on Raw. The next month at Fully Loaded, he's the main events Kane and Mankind tagging with tagging against Undertaker and Austin, because they're doing the build to the SummerSlam, Austin and Taker main event. And then Breakdown in September 98, that's the triple threat match where Kane and Undertaker pin Austin and the title gets vacated. Yep. Then the next
Kane couldn't like pin Undertaker to win the title. Undertaker could pin Kane. So literally it was just Vince McMahon setting up a situation where they're just going to beat up Austin for 20 minutes.
Right. Yes, exactly. But then the next month they do the Judgment Day pay-per-view. Yeah, which was Kane versus Undertaker for the vacant WWF title. And even that, so Austin, I can't remember if Austin was the referee or if he just ran in at the end.
Austin was the ref.
Okay, so he was the referee. So Austin's not in that match. It's just Kane versus Undertaker. But again, that one did like over 300,000 buys, and the year before it had done under 200,000. So again, just like an incredible, massive increase.
Yeah, this is a hot program.
Oh yeah. And then Survivor Series, they do the tournament. So going in, Kane had just been in a bunch of pay-per-view main events. I'm sure some fans were like, Kane could win the title, going into the Survivor Series tournament, maybe. Who knows?
Yeah.
And so he's just part of this period here where he is a central figure in the main event storylines in one of like the best business years in WWF history. So that's really, and obviously, like, he's not the driver of that. Like, that's Steve Austin, obviously, and and then Undertaker's probably, Vince McMahon too. Obviously, those are the guys right behind it. But Kane is playing like a featured regular role in the main event that year, and he's absolutely killing it. At least from a business standpoint. The thing is, where it gets, at least from a pay-per-view perspective, after that, he doesn't, like, he headlines here and there, like Unforgiven 99, he's in the six-pack challenge. Unforgiven 2000, he's in the four-way with, I believe it's Undertaker and Rock. And yeah, that's Rock's hot year in 2000. I think Benoit was the other guy in that one.
Yep.
So he's in that. Then he's, teaming with Taker against the two-man power trip at Backlash 2001. No Mercy 2002. That's that Katie Vick angle, a title challenge against Triple H. Armageddon 2003. He's in the against Goldberg and Triple H. So he's kind of, and then 2004, he's wrestling Benoit at Bad Blood, which is probably his best, like, straight up singles match of his career.
Mm-hmm.
And then, after that, like, he doesn't really do a whole lot until 2010, where he gets like that string of, like, he wrestles Rey Mysterio at SummerSlam, which is kind of the undercard, but I think that's the only world title match on that show, because the Nexus elimination match was on top.
Mm-hmm.
Then he beats the Undertaker 3 straight times.
Yes.
Which is bizarre.
I watched some of these. He had a Hell in a Cell match. I think they had was it a Buried Alive match?
It was a Buried Alive. Yep. And I think they just had like a normal match, or maybe it was something else.
I think it was like Last Man Standing or something.
Okay, could have been that.
I think all 3 were gimmicks. But it was in between the Shawn Michaels Manias. And the story was like basically like is Undertaker too soft? I think is basically what it was. Kane's here to rile him up. This is also when Paul Bearer is back, and he turns on Undertaker during the Hell in a Cell match and joins Kane by revealing a light emanating from the urn. I watched this match recently. I don't know if anyone could tell.
Why did you watch that?
I got research to do, Adam. I don't know what to tell you.
Oh my God. And then that transitions into the Edge feud, which was awful. That, I remember at the time watching that and being like, what is going on? Like, why is Kane like headlining every month, all like out of nowhere in that year? And this is the thing. He also kind of killed the world heavyweight title, because that Hell in a Cell match, I think, is the last pay-per-view where that title went on last. Like, after that, it was purely like, okay, this is like the B title. Like, it's not because if you remember back in those 2000s, like, what belt was more important would switch. Like, it would switch shows. Sometimes they'd have, it wasn't always like what belt Cena had or Cena was going, but it would switch. The belts would switch shows. So sometimes one was, more important than the other one. Sometimes SmackDown was bigger than Raw a little bit, during those years. But that was like the end of that belt being considered like the top belt, was when Kane had it for that. And obviously that's not a credit to him. That's what I'll say. But that's kind of it for him, as like, I guess after that, he's like, okay, he's in like an Elimination Chamber match. He's in the triple threat with Bryan Danielson and CM Punk at No Way Out 2012. That show did pretty well, but they weren't even the main event in that. It was like Cena and Big Show and Johnny Ace or that horrible program. And after that, that, like he's in Money in the Bank matches, he's in Survivor Series matches. You brought up earlier world title match against like in 2015. Also had do you remember this the triple threat match he had at the Royal Rumble against Brock Lesnar and Braun Strowman? Because I do not, but I saw that and
What year?
I have no memory. 2018 Royal Rumble. It was for the Universal title.
No.
I blocked that out of my mind, but I saw that.
That's the problem with a lot of like the Royal Rumble title matches is you don't care at that point really at all, because you're just like looking towards WrestleMania, looking at what that could be, and more excited about who's going to win the Rumble, especially later, in the get to the 2010s and everything. You just stop caring about like what the Royal Rumble title match is going to be, because oftentimes it would just be like against Kane and Braun Strowman against Brock Lesnar. You're like, well, Brock's not losing this to Kane. What are we doing?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So he headlined quite a bit, I guess we can say, right? So you can see just from that though, it's like, okay, it's, almost 30, like, headline or co-headlining spots. It's like almost 30 of them across literally a 20-year period, right?
Yeah.
So obviously he's not always, he wasn't always like the pay-per-view headliner or like in the top program in a given month, but he's consistently featured close to the top. So he's probably headlining a lot of house shows or TVs, TV shows as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes sense when you think about it, like how he ended up on Dave's list. But then, when we're breaking it down and talking about, okay, what's like a Hall of Fame level draw? It's like, well, he wasn't really the driver of the business spikes, but I would say if he had more periods, like, the 1998 period, mm-hmm. or even if he was just like I'll say like Paul Orndorff got inducted recently, right? Because he was Hogan's best opponent. Mm-hmm. I would say like if Kane had a lot of success where as an opponent against, like other top guys that came after Steve Austin and The Rock, right? Through the different eras, I think you could make a case and say, yeah, hey, you know what? He actually is like a really strong draw. As it is now, I would like, all right, you could make a case that he's a Hall of Fame level draw. But I would say I don't think his role holds a lot of historical significance, I would say, or like he was really the driver for that, because they probably could have put other opponents on those shows and probably done similar numbers, just because once they get out of that hot period, there's not a lot that you see that's indicating, oh, Kane's in the main event now, business is going up. It's usually just kind of the same or even declining. You're just kind of going with the flow of whatever the promotion was doing.
Yeah, and I think that's a big part of it too. I'm looking at all my data points. I'm saying that Kane had a 24 years active in professional wrestling. And what am I determining as active? Just 5+ matches in a year, right? So I'm saying that, he's at about 24. And to what we're talking about here is that like that is such a incredibly long career where he has some spots where he's pushed high up and in a well regard, but it's not enough when you look at it in totality. So I had it that with this extremely long career, he was on top about 15% of his time, which roughly matches the percentages on top in length of career as Gunther, someone who has a extremely short career in WWE, where he was on top once. The Young Bucks, who have a short U.S. television run where they're, or not television run, but U.S. run where they're on top once. And Jeff Hardy, who also has a very long career, but on top 3 times. So it's just Kane is somebody that like, it is that thing. And that is probably it's almost the thing that hurts him to a degree. It is a guy that, because the length of his career, which sort of, I guess, when you're looking at like longevity and all these sort of things, people like to look at, hey, look, 25+ career, this is all pretty good. But when it comes to like the drawing and everything, it's like, well, yeah, but like in 25 years, he's only popping off like what do I have it as? I have him popping off top 5 placements of Kane, 3 and 4. So like 3.5 times in 24 years. That's not really that great comparative to a lot of different guys. And that's but that's what we're sort of talking about with Kane, is that like at the end of the day, he's pretty much like an upper mid-carder kind of guy that you can pop him up into the main event scene, help out with a hot program or something like that, or help add some more juice or something. Sometimes it wouldn't work at all. Sometimes it would work. Maybe you could probably say more often not, it didn't work, especially when it got to the 2010s. And I think that's a big thing against him as well. But yeah, it's just like sort of a guy that like he has moments where he's popping off. And that's also I think the issue with Dave's list of, this is a guy that has a lot of 10,000 plus main events at paper, or I think it's just pay-per-views, or I don't know if it's all arenas for Dave.
It's all arena shows.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
This helps because Kane was a wrestler during the Attitude Era, during the biggest business that the company was ever in, till like the 2020s in terms of drawing attendance. So yeah, it's gonna help skew things a little bit to help him out there in terms of looking at that one string of data. But when you look at across his entire totality of his career, it's a lot smaller of a margin compared to a lot of other different wrestlers. Like, I mean, look at like Goldberg, going off of my list. And this is by my list, folks. This is a United States pay-per-view attendance list that I put together from 1989 to 2025. It'll be in the description below, along with Adam's article as well from Voices of Wrestling about pay-per-view draws that came out in like 2023, I want to say.
Yeah, 2022, 2023.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And this one's up to date, folks. So I don't know if it's more accurate or not. But like looking at this like list, like someone like who's someone that ranks really high. Like The Rock has only 8 active years. He's on top 6 times. Who was Goldberg? He had one that was like super high or something like that. He has I'm calling 6 active years for Goldberg, on top 3 times, so like half of his career he's on top of the card. There are wrestlers that with shorter careers have a greater percentage of being on top, whereas Kane, his career is so long that it almost starts detracting him, especially once he gets to the 2010s, and that starts really kind of, I think, almost hurting his case to a degree, especially with so many, at least critically, it's hurting his case a lot.
Yeah, I think I'll say this. I think if Kane was like this out of this world worker, where you're like, okay, this guy's definitely like a Hall of Fame level wrestler, I think you'd probably you could talk yourself into voting for him based on his drawing data, right? But when it's like, okay, he's definitely not a Hall of Fame level worker, and the drawing data has to carry him, you're kind of like, I can't get there with it, right? Like I can't get there. Like maybe you can talk yourself into saying like, okay, he meets this like one criterion, but he doesn't meet the other 2. Because like I mentioned earlier, it's like, okay, if you take Kane out, like, is the WWF still super hot in 1998? Yeah, they are, right?
Yeah.
Like
it's not because of Kane.
Right. He did well in the role, obviously. He did really well in the role, was super successful. Like, you're not taking that away from him. But again, he's the other guy in those, right? And when he was the other guy later in his career, he wasn't nearly as effective in that role. So I think that's kind of the drawback. But what is interesting, though, is this type of conversation, though, is not exclusive to Kane. And that's why I find this fascinating, because like on that list of greatest draws of all time, right? Just looking at like wrestlers who are still active, we have Roman Reigns is 11th on that list. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Roman Reigns notoriously on top for a very long period of time as WWE's business and interest continue to decline. Now that changed in the 2020s after he finally turned heel, started working with Sami Zayn and Cody Rhodes, and they had this boom period that they hadn't seen since the Attitude Era, right? So Reigns, though, he does have that peak there where, okay, like he did 50,000 people at a stadium show, SummerSlam stadium show against Jey Uso, right? Like, it's like, okay, at least for this period, this guy, obviously a pretty strong drawing card here. But then looking down, like Seth Rollins and Randy Orton are 21st and 22nd on that list. And Randy is very similar in that, he's like, he had some periods of time where he was effective as the top guy, other periods of time where he was decidedly not very effective as the top guy, but he's aggregated together so much time on top. Like I think he has headlined like the most pay-per-views in WWE history, and I don't think it's close either. So yeah, I mean, and then you get Seth Rollins, who, also is headlined a ton. It's not in the pay-per-view era, right? Like, it's all in the network era, so we don't have buy rates we can go on. But it is worth noting, like, if you look at WWE's financial statements that they put out, and as someone with an accounting degree, I'm interested in doing that, at least back when they had them before they merged with TKO, you could see that like 2015 and 2019, when Seth Rollins was on top, those were not good business years for WWE. Like, they declined significantly in both those years. So it's just, this is a thing that, and Kevin Owens, I just noticed, is 34th on that list, which seems like that's mind-blowing to me. But again, I guess, he started headlining back in 2015, like 2016.
Yep.
So, and he's just been like a consistent, he doesn't headline most of the pay-per-views or most of the PLEs, right? But probably he gets like, a couple each year, maybe 2 or 3 each year. Where
there was a period where the Royal Rumble was his.
Yeah, him every single year. Every single year. So I think Kane, he was kind of like a precursor to all these like network and I guess, network, Peacock, Netflix era, like pay-per-view shows where it is kind of a little bit more of an ensemble cast, and there's guys like headlining for a little while during the year, then coming back the next year. But again, WWE being the biggest promotion in the world, they rack up a lot of like drawing credit from a raw numbers perspective. And I think the challenge for the voters going forward is, well, okay, how much credit do we give them for drawing when WWE's baseline for drawing is so high already, and their ability to influence it, right? Like, it's not always obvious, like, if they are influencing it in a positive way. Now, maybe it would be worse, maybe it would have been worse without them. And also, in their defense as well, like, they were all dealing with some truly horrendous creative a lot of the time. So like, I'm not saying like, oh, they're the reason like business was going down. A lot of the creative was bad too. So it's just really, it's this like, just like this tangled web that you kind of have to unravel, because like the business, like just the revenue streams, most of the money coming from TV, and pay-per-view going away, and just being like a subscription model for streaming services, like all that stuff is just so different from all the eras that came before it. And then also just the strategy of, we just put so much content out. W just pumps out so much content on TV all the time, like it's. That also plays a role as well. So it's a very different business over the past 10 years or so than it was before that, and it was what makes it complicated to like analyze this stuff and figuring out who you're going to vote for. But I think it's also part of what makes it so much fun.
Can I provide some more data points?
Yeah, go for it.
Here. Again, this will all be accessible online for everyone to look at. But I have this giant list of pay-per-view attendance. It's by 10 different data points. Kane is comfortably sitting at number. This is of 1989 to 2025. This is 80 wrestlers that are currently on this list. Kane is sitting at number 21 overall, but combining all these sort of rankings across these 10 data points. Right above him, Samoa Joe. Above that, Batista. Below Kane is Cody Rhodes, and then right below Cody is Bret Hart. So what a group of people to go across. The couple points I wanted to make. You brought up a thing about like the skewing of WWE that does happen just because WWE has been a massive company for so long. They've also had a monopoly on the industry for over a decade, over 2 decades. So there's always that thing. One of the data points or two, I guess, technically, of the data points I put in here is sort of like a let me see how it looks like if you flatten the playing field a little bit. What is because we sort of arbitrarily picked, I don't know, as a wrestling community, for some reason, I don't know what the origin point is. We all sort of decided the number is 10,000, right? We just sort of set the bar there. Anything above 10,000 is great. If you do it a bunch of times, you're a Hall of Famer. That's pretty much what we sort of decided as a community. I don't know where that number started from. Probably Dave. I don't know. Vince. I don't know. So how do we flatten that? So I would just look at let's look at the 1/3 of the top attendance for all these companies. So for example, for WCW and their pay-per-view run, that is actually 10,000, is 1/3. All of their pay-per-views, the best 1/3 is all 10,000 plus. For AEW, it's 11,000. This is also up to 2025, by the way. It's 11,000. For WWE, it's 16,000. And then also I have research for TNA, and theirs is much lower. I don't know if that shocks you in any way. So let's looking at that sort of number to look at the even playing field. Has Kane do there? Just for the context for everyone at home. This is looking at let's look at like just main events, right? Just look at main events in that 1/3 promotional scale. Your top 10 are number 1, Triple H, Taker, Hogan, Austin, Cena, Roman, Sting, Brock Lesnar, Rock, Shawn Michaels, and this is why I wanted to give this list. Number 10, Samoa Joe. Interesting. How does Kane do on that list of just main events on that sort of promotional scale? He's number 26. He's around Seth Rollins, Bret Hart, Bubba Ray Dudley, and Mick Foley. Bubba Ray Dudley, that's Aces Nate's feuds, really help him out there. But yeah, it's sort of going what we're going against is that like he has a good number of things. I mean, looking at just main events at 10,000 plus, he is I have him at number 13. He's actually tied with Chris Jericho, both at 23 main events, and that's for Chris Jericho across WWE, AEW, and if he had any in WCW, I don't remember off the top of my head. I don't think so. So Kane's like, again, he does fairly well on things. He's not horrendous. He's that number 21 overall for me. Depending on specific data strings, he is either the second or third highest, biggest drawing star in 10,000 plus attendance, not in the Hall of Fame, behind Randy Orton and Seth Rollins. If that helps any of their cases in any real way, flattening the playing field, he does okay. He's beyond other candidates, but he's not too bad. I think it's really what we're talking about here. The longevity is kind of what's hurting him a lot. It's not being on top 3 to 4 times in his career. And when I say times in his career, I'm saying being a top 5 drawing person in his career. It's only 3 to 4 times across 24 years. It's not a big thing that helps him. One thing that does help him, Adam, looking at sort of like a positive versus negative influence on year-over-year growth, he is a top 5 versus in different sort of data strings here in 98, 2000, 2005, 2012, and 2014, and 2004. 2004 is the only year where WWE's average attendance declined year over year. All those other years, it grew. Now, is it because of Kane? Not necessarily, but it is something in feathers cap. Looking at all these data strings, he's like in the top 20%, 5 of 10 of them. Again, it's like right down the middle of like, look, you can same thing of his wrestling ability, right down the middle of like, look, some people could argue and make a case of like, look, he has a lot of 10,000 plus attendance. He has a lot of main and semi-main events where he's 10,000 plus attendance. He does really well on main and semi-main events with that 1/3 promotional scale. He it has some positive influence on his the year-over-year growth for the company. But then it's also like, well, he has a really long career where it's not really help him out that case. So it's like if you look at the 90s, if you look at the early 2000s, that's when you're going to get a lot of prime stuff. But then you're looking at the breadth of his career, and the breadth of his career is not necessarily a Hall of Fame draw in my books. I think it's certainly a strong case. I think it's probably his strongest criteria, but it's not necessarily a lot of different things. One other point I forgot to say was one thing that's really boosted his numbers as well for my data points is he has a lot of semi-main events that really boost his numbers a lot. Main events, he's a little bit lower, but semi-main events, he's like actually higher when it comes to things. In 10,000 plus attendance, he has 23 main events. He has 43 main and semi-main events. That's 20 plus more. On that 1/3 promotional scale for WWE, that's 16,000. 9 main events, 22 main and semi-mains. So he has a significant number. And that 16,000, what's boosting him there is semi-main events. So again, an upper mid-carder. I think he is sort of a successfully drawing upper mid-carder that when you put him into that next sphere of main eventer, sometimes it works. A good amount of the time, especially in the 2010s, it does not work. And that's just kind of where Kane's at in my viewpoint.
Yeah, I think based on everything you're saying, I think you can definitely make a case like, hey, this guy does meet the criteria as a Hall of Fame level draw. I think the drawback is, in terms of him as an overall candidate, is it's not strong enough to get him in on that alone.
No.
So then, okay, you have to then make a case for him as a worker, which, as we discussed earlier, is very difficult to do.
Yeah.
Based on
it's worse. I think we both agree it's worse than a drawing.
Yeah. Oh, by far.
Like I am at like 5 of 10 of things. I'm going to give a thumbs up to my data points. His wrestling is probably like 3 or 4 of 10. You know, something it's like it's a little bit worse. It's not too much worse. It's not the worst I've ever seen, but it's not too much better.
Yeah, no, I think he was, for as bad as like he was in a lot of truly horrific things, but that is still a minority of what he was involved in. Most of the time, he was fine. But again, this is the Hall of Fame, so he's not approaching being a Hall of Fame level performer at all. And then when you get into historical significance, like we talked about, he was part of a very successful ensemble during the Attitude Era. And then outside of that, it's all kind of hits and misses here and there. He's never the driver or the focus outside of 2010 when he was definitely the focus for an extended period of time, which did not go well at all. So like business-wise or critically, did not go well at all, right? So that's where the case kind of just falls apart, right? Yeah. But I do think like the drawing data and digging into that was fascinating, and I think he's a lot better than people would think.
Yeah, I think, and it's obviously subjective to a lot of people's opinion. And spoilers alert, I'm probably not going to vote for Kane at all. But like, I think when people see Kane pop up on the ballot, it's like immediate hand waving. And I get it. I understand completely why. Kane's not really that great of a wrestler. He's, there's the whole drawing thing, and people are pointing out like, hey, look, he's in a lot of multi-mans, a lot of sort of things. And look, I gave a bunch of numbers. These aren't like necessarily, this isn't me strictly looking at singles matches. These are just looking at like how many main events and everything like that. So I think that's a fair part of his case as well. I think I had that stat here. So out of his 10,000 plus main events, how many he had? He had 23. 4 of his main events are singles matches. 9 of his 10,000 plus are semi-main events. So that is about 31% of his 10,000 plus main and semis are singles matches. So yeah, there's a good amount of, that's a good, I should probably brought up that point, but that's a good amount of thing that maybe affects his run as well. Like, for example, we talked about Gunther in the last episode. He has like, I think it's 6 pay-per-view main events and semi-main events. All of them are singles matches. Very small case to be made for him, but it's all singles matches. Whereas Kane's, it's about a third. So yeah, to move on from drawing again. I don't know if there's any other points we want to make here, but you already gracefully moved us to the historical significance.
Well, yeah, we kind of talked about it. I think what's interesting to me about Kane as a candidate, and also I guess more just in general when we're talking about comparing him against other candidates, but also this would apply to like Seth Rollins and Randy Orton as well, right? Like when you're okay, these guys aren't necessarily massive difference makers, but they do aggregate, a lot of success over time, right? Just because they've been on top so often for so long. How do you weigh that? And I guess this would apply to Edge too, right? Because Edge, not quite doesn't have quite the same volume as those guys, but does have an extended run on top, even though, again, for the most part, not this massive difference maker. But Edge also though has a lot better work than I would say at least Kane and Randy Orton, right?
Yeah.
But it gets interesting into, okay, how do you weigh that against, let's say, like the longevity of great work from the Briscoe brothers, who don't really have any sort of Hall of Fame drawing case whatsoever, or Samoa Joe, who was a difference maker, but for smaller companies a lot, during his career, while also being, an incredible worker for like the best worker in the world for a handful of years. So like, and you have the Hardy Boys, who again draws at like an indie level, not like the AEW or WWE. So we're together for a long time, had a lot of great matches,
like 3 decades of work, by the way, too.
A lot of historical significance. You get the Steiner brothers, who again, not Hall of Fame level draws, but one of the best tag teams of.
But also the thing that hurts them is that like WCW wasn't putting them in main events, really,
right?
So it is these, and I think it's the constant conversation that sort of we've had about the Hall of Fame in the past several years is, I think it's especially with like historical US and Canada, you start getting to a lot more fringe things. Mm-hmm. There's not really any slam dunks in the Hall of Fame coming up anytime soon. I think very obviously, I think you and I would both agree that the slam dunk would be Ospreay.
That, I mean, there's someone on the ballot this year that I think should be a slam dunk, but
in terms of a new person,
no, someone who's been on for a little while.
But to that point is like there, like who is like new people or returning people that could pop onto the case. Is anyone going to be a slam dunk person? It's like, no, Kane is like the perfect embodiment of like an upper mid Carter that like has been around for a long time, and it's just sort of like, yeah, what are we looking at? And going back to last year's conversation that we had, you're a big proponent of sort of that push towards more modern people. Kane is like maybe sort of for a lot of people a dividing line as well. As many people, listeners on this network would probably hand wave Kane. I know as soon as Kane got announced, I know Rich in the Discord was like, "Get the fuck out of here, Kane! What are we doing?" Sorry, Rich. But I think for a lot of people are like, yeah, Kane's back on the ballot. I'm going to vote for Kane. He's a draw and all these sort of different things. I think he's like dividing line for a lot of people because it's the numbers out of that we're trying to provide are in the context. The Briscoe brothers, great, sort of draws within Ring of Honor, but Ring of Honor is such a small level. Samoa Joe, great draw, really great draw. I said he's number 10 on that sort of promotional playing field.
Well, yeah, because his run probably aligned with his run on top in TNA, probably aligned with when they were touring and doing like
when they were doing great business. Yeah,
they were doing a lot of their shows outside.
And
everything. They got out of the impact zone for a handful of years there.
Oh yeah, and then there's a sprinkling of WWE and a sprinkling of AEW on top of that. So it's just these sort of things of like, and that's always the conversation, and that's always the conversation with the Hall of Fame, right? Is what are these sort of fringe cases? What is the line for people? For me, Kane is probably lower than the line for some other people. I'm not considering Kane too hard. Because I think there's a good amount of people. I mean, that being said, I only have like 3 people for sure, and I'm thinking about other names. But still, before we talk about the section, I want to do 3 bits of historical significance talking points I want to get through, Adam, and just to set us up and close out the Kane conversation here. Number one, is there any sort of historical significance that you would consider with his records and previously broken records of the Royal Rumble? Do you think there is any significance? Hey, look, Kane's a historical Royal Rumble wrestler. Do you think that has any play in it? These also, by the way, folks, these are hypotheticals. These aren't me going to bat for Kane here. I'm just saying, hey, Adam, is there anything to this?
I love the idea that kayfabe statistics could play a role. That would be fun. But I think we just need more of them. The Royal Rumble is one of the few things that keep a lot of kayfabe statistics. So I'm going to say no for now, but if we get enough kayfabe statistics from other companies and different things, and then, maybe the Royal Rumble eliminations and time in the match will stand out more in context.
All right. Historical significance point number 2. I'm going to call this the Jesse Ventura clause. Does him holding political office help him in any real way? Question. This is a 2-parter. Does him, unlike Jesse Ventura, who ran for political office with a work name of Jesse Ventura, does it hurt Kane that he had to run on a stupid little shoot name like Glenn Jacobs, not run for, I think, governor? Or mayor, run for mayor as Kane. Why can't he run as mayor as Kane? Would that have helped his Hall of Fame career case?
I always heard him referred to as Mayor Kane, so I thought he did. I don't think nothing will compare to Great Sasuke being in Japanese Parliament with his mask.
True. That's true.
Like that. That is something that I actually think does help his
that's the Jesse Ventura clause if I've ever seen it.
Right, exactly. But yeah, Kane being a mayor, and I don't think that mayor run went super well. But
he's still mayor. I think he's still mayor.
Is he still mayor?
Yeah, he still holds political office. It's going well because he's
still there.
He's in a highly Republican city.
Okay.
So he's
all right.
Yeah,
right. Well,
every once in a while, I get reminded about Kane's political views, and I'm like, oh, geez.
Yeah, I think that's probably why I had the impression it wasn't going super well. But all right, I guess his constituents are happy with him.
Yes, he's been in office. He's an incumbent mayor of Knox County since 2018.
Wow.
So shout out Kane, I guess.
Do you think his mayoral run or tenure will be longer or shorter than his WWE tenure?
I hope it's longer. I just think that'd be funny.
Well,
because if it ends short, he goes back to working for WWE. He's going to help Undertaker in AAA.
Okay.
The guy, I mean, I don't know if it affects him in any way. He was born in Spain, so maybe he knows some Spanish while working AAA.
Don't threaten me with a good time. That sounds fascinating. That sounds hilarious.
He's gonna work. He's gonna teach Galeno Del Mal how to work as a big man.
I'm just picturing the Brothers of Destruction backstage stroking their chins as they try to figure out who's going to headline Triple Mania that year and how they get there.
What white guy can we put under a mask next? Who do we got? All right, last a little bit, and this is probably the most serious one. He is the quote unquote brother to one of the biggest stars in wrestling. Biggest characters, stars at the very least in professional wrestling. Everyone, I think Undertaker probably passes a good amount of like mom tests, like parent tests. He's probably not, Undertaker's probably not the first name that people come up to, but he's probably a name that people would eventually like in a top 10, I would say. Is there sort of a conversation? We've had this constant conversation all episode about him being sort of this upper mid-card wrestler. He's in a lot of tag teams. He's assisting with other wrestlers. He's assisting in other feuds. I jokingly said that he's assisting the Great Khali. He had such a extremely memorable debut as Kane, and starts feuding with the Undertaker that then helps develop the character of the Undertaker even more. Where does Kane rank in the sort of look, Adam? I'm coming from a film background here, so my argument here is where does Kane rank in this sort of like best supporting characters of wrestling history? we sort of outlined that he is not winning Best Actor anytime soon. But does Kane at the very least do pretty well as a Best Supporting Actor?
I think what he's the best at is like just that gimmick being created, like a total kayfabe gimmick storyline that had no connection to Glenn Jacobs as a person or a wrestler prior to entering like that role. Because it's not, because oftentimes, you know, guys might come up with a gimmick in one territory and then they would use it going forward, right? Or their gimmick was more or less just them being themselves in some way with some that evolved over time. Fake Diesel and Isaac Yankem and what was he, the Unabomber before that? Like nothing like the Kane gimmick or character at all. So I think we mentioned this earlier. I think like Undertaker is number one for just like gimmick created from scratch that they, you know, gave to a guy. Kane might be number two. I can't think of, it's tough for me to think of like anyone else. I mean, I guess
Bray Wyatt, former discussion topic for you and I.
Oh, God. Well, the second one, well, that actually made me appreciate Wyndham so much more. Like, because I mean, his brother just tried to do him, and it wasn't the same, like at all. So that there's a lot of times where like they try to put it, you know, we just talked about it. Actually, Fake Diesel, right? They tried to have him be Diesel, did not work at all.
I didn't think
right.
Bo Dallas is fake Bray Wyatt, but that is basically what it was.
I mean, that's basically what he was. But yeah, like fake, you know, but so like Kane, he filled the role really well. And I think the role was, that gimmick was probably way more successful and had way more staying power than anyone anticipated at the time. So the guy had a hell of a career. But I'm fine with him being on the ballot because he was, you know, a very significant name and figure in pro wrestling at a high level for an extremely long time. I'm fine with him getting, you know, another shot on the ballot since it had been so long. And he also had a lot of career left after he was on before. But, you know, again, as we just discussed, he's not going to be Hall of Fame level for me, but I do think he was worthy of being on the ballot and to have his career, you know, break down in conversations like this.
I mean, yeah, would I take his career in a heartbeat? Yeah, of course. You know what I mean? Like, of course I'll take Kane's career.
Well, yeah, if you think about it in the context of like someone becoming, like all the people that try to become pro wrestlers and hope to have like some type of career, like, you know, he's in the top 1% easily, right? From that perspective. But, you know, kind of with the Hall of Fame, you know, we're looking at like the top 1% of the top 1%. Okay. But yeah, obviously like an incredible career, very eventful in both good and bad ways, very eventful.
Yeah. Let's close the show up how we usually do it. Adam, I know you have it in front of you, but I'm going to pull it up in front of us as well. Let's go over. I thought I was pulling it up. Where did it go? Oh, there it is. The modern U.S. and Canada section. Obviously, Kane is in that section this year. We sort of already discussed it a little bit last week, but I'm more than happy because I'm always fascinated to know what my guests are currently thinking as it sits. Plus, with Adam, this is his one of the couple stops he makes on his Hall of Fame, his Goldberg press tour. So it's always an important moment to give him that sort of press run. So modern US and Canada, we got 17 acts this year as it currently stands. As of recording May 30th, I think this comes out June something. Dave, I don't think is adding anyone. You know, sometimes if people pass away, he sort of typically adds people. I don't think there's anyone that I know about off the top of my head, but always could happen. So as of right now, 17 acts. That means 5 votes voters get in the region. Those voters can vote on the following candidates. You have Mark and Jay Briscoe, Samoa Joe, Matt and Jeff Hardy, the Steiner brothers, John Moxley, Randy Orton, Becky Lynch, Edge, and or Adam Copeland, Bill Goldberg, The Outsiders, Mercedes Moné, Trish Stratus, Seth Rollins, Dave Bautista, shout out Bigger Dave, Kane, Booker T, and Gunther, aka Walter. Adam, you get 5 votes, up to 5 votes. Who are you thinking for your ballot?
So I have three returning candidates that I voted for last year. So last year, I voted for, because we had six, right? I think
I
we had
believe it was
six.
6 last year.
So last year I voted for Cody Rhodes, CM Punk, and Sabu, who all went in. And then my three returning candidates are Jay and Mark Briscoe, Samoa Joe, and the guy I referred to earlier as someone who I think is a slam dunk now and needs to go in this year, John Moxley.
Yeah.
So
those are my exact same three people, by the way, as well, as it currently stands.
Yeah, so I'm definitely going to vote for all three of them again. And then after that, I am really not sure because they're so, like, all the candidates are so different in so many different ways. Like you have like Goldberg and the Outsiders, who were obviously very historically significant in terms of being big stars during a really hot period and being super draws. Like the Outsiders, I think, are way underrated from a drawing power perspective. Like they were the catalyst for WCW's turnaround, and it wasn't. I'll just put it this way: it wasn't just Hogan, because Hogan was there before, and then they showed up, and business picked up a lot. Now, obviously, Hogan turning had a lot to do with that, but if Hogan turns without them, like it's not nearly as effective, which we know because they teased Hogan turning in, I want to say, like November of '95. Like he played the heel role against Sting. And they had a match on Nitro, and it did okay, but it wasn't like some super big thing.
The Outsiders was sort of the engine to
exactly
Hogan needed for that.
And they headlined or co-headlined a lot of pay-per-views too that did extremely well during those years. The problem though is it's only like a couple-year run, and then if you want to credit them with positive historical significance, Kevin Nash being the booker was also has some negatives. It takes a little bit away. But yeah, so so I don't know who else I'll vote for. Like,
who are you leaning for?
I really don't know, because it could go, like, I think, like, I'm always partially intrigued by the Steiner brothers because they were just great, and I love the Steiner brothers. Matt and Jeff Hardy, obviously very influential, also had a lot of drawing at sold a lot of merch and were big draws on the indies and it's the smaller promotions. Mercedes and Becky, I always feel like are kind of two sides of the same coin. There has to be a woman inducted from, I'll say, like the 2010s, 2020s period in North American wrestling, because I don't think people give enough weight to like what women's wrestling was. I'll just say, like, pre the NXT women and the Four Horsewomen breaking out, like that was just age. I mean, the Divas stuff, they would get like maybe 5 minutes on, like 5 minutes for a match or something, and that was it. And like outside of, like, for indie wrestling and stuff, like, there were some great women's indie wrestlers out there, but like Sarah Del Rey as an example, but they weren't like headlining that much. And also Sarah Del Rey, like, she was wrestling men a lot too. So like, it's like, it was just a complete transformation that started, with the Four Horsewomen, coming up from NXT, getting on the main roster. And that's when WWE started giving women more time, presenting them as more serious characters. So yeah, so I think there needs to be a representative. Now, whether that's Becky or Mercedes, I don't know how that's going to come out. Obviously, Becky's gotten a lot more support, probably because, she was a stronger draw, which is a little bit more objective. But I would say, like, honestly, like, Mercedes was the first woman to headline a pay-per-view in WWE. And you can really trace when WWE started giving the women more time on pay-per-view and on TV with longer matches. That was really when Mercedes broke out. So, and obviously, there's the, she's like the best in-ring, woman in the region in the past, like, 50 years, right? If not ever. So I like, she's someone who intrigues me, but I just find it really difficult to weigh a case like that is so different than like Goldberg or the Outsiders, or even like Batista, right? Who was clearly like a big draw for a handful of years for the biggest promotion in the world. And, not a Hall of Fame level worker, I would say, but he was, very good. for a lot of that time, and also you could argue he holds historical significance because of what a big star he was and the strong draw he was for the biggest promotion in the world. So I really don't know. Like, I think I'm going to be very open-minded this year for those last two spots on the ballot to see, like, okay, who can potentially sway me one way or another. But the Briscoes, Joe, and Moxley, those are definitely three locks for me. And then outside of that, I'll probably be listening to, your show and many others with the different guests to see. I greatly enjoyed John Pollock last week with the Gunther conversation.
Yeah, John killed it.
John's awesome. John does these YouTube shows where he like recaps the history of like SummerSlam, the Royal Rumble, Survivor Series. He goes over like every single show, but he doesn't just talk about what happened on the show. He talks about like what was going on in WWE at the time, like both like kind of before and after. And they're all like multiple hours long, like for each one. So anyway, it's those shows were awesome. So anyway, I always love listening to John, but that's some of his work that I've really enjoyed over the past year.
I'm trying to think. I had a point. There was a couple points I wanted to pin in there that I was trying to pin in there. Yeah, I mean, like Batista, he's the sort of person that he's on the same. I had him on the same wavelength of Kane, as I mentioned previously, in terms of drawing. What helps Batista is that he's had a shorter career that helps him a little bit. Now, again, if you're looking at longevity, it's like, yeah, Kane, but then Batista was on top 4 times out of 11 years in his career.
Right.
It's pretty good.
I'm obviously not the world's like most supportive Goldberg fan, but at least from a Hall of Fame perspective, but it's kind of similar in that, okay, this guy was highly effective for a short period of time. So how do you weigh that against, someone like Edge or Randy Orton or Seth Rollins, who wasn't as big a difference maker like in any period of time, but they were on top for so much longer.
I had Randy
aggregated. Yeah,
I had Randy at 8 years where he's on top. He's in the top 5.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. So all these candidates are just so different. They're just there's so much variety, and it's so both from like a time period perspective, but also in terms of what their strengths and weaknesses are in the various categories. I think it really comes down to just kind of, okay, what do you value the most, right?
Yeah.
Like, do you lean more towards work? Do you lean more towards historical significance and influence? Do you lean more towards drawing? And I think that's probably going to dictate. I think it's more about probably voter philosophy than like any of these outside of Moxley, I'll say, who I think just is head and shoulders above everyone in this region this year. Outside of him, I think it's really just comes down to, what exactly do you value the most philosophically?
I think also two points I want to make here. Number one, very quickly, in that giant United States pay-per-view attendance thing I have, Becky Lynch, Mercedes Moné ranked the exact same. They are both ranked 67 at the exact same number. So that's interesting to me. But two, it's what I find most interesting about this region. All regions have their own sort of peculiarities. Like I think like rest of the world is like the best region and the most impossible region to vote in because there's like 10, like 8, 9, 10 people that are like all potential Hall of Famers and you have to figure it out. Here, what I find interesting is that I think, like we said before, there's a lot more of these fringe cases that are interesting, but interesting discussion points to think about. But there's no one that really sticks out. I do agree. I think Moxley sticks out a lot more. But then it's like, look, Cody, Punk, and Sabu all vacuuming up a lot of votes last year, right? Whereas now number one on the Modern US and Canada here is Mark and Jay Briscoe. 48.8% is what they got last year. That sort of voting share. So the region is wide open. The region is really wide open to see, okay, I don't necessarily think, and I'd love to know what your thought on this is, Adam. I don't necessarily think anyone from Modern US and Canada is necessarily going to go in this year. I do agree. I think like John Moxley is probably the strongest on this thing, but even then he's 32.3. He has to have a significant jump. Now, granted, there's a lot of votes that are now available with Cody and Punk and Sabu going in. At the same time, you have people like Batista, Kane, Booker T, Gunther coming on. Is that going to vacuum up some like WWE voters? How is this category going to play out? I just think is rather fascinating because I truly have no idea. This whole category is a coin flip for me.
Yeah, I agree. It's very unpredictable. If anyone goes in, like the Briscoes and Moxley, I think would be the only two that I could see potentially going in. The Briscoes, just because I could see with last year's ballot, maybe some people leaving them off that, would have voted for them otherwise, just because, they wanted to vote for Sabu, Punk, and Cody, and maybe they have some other candidates still on that they ranked higher. So I could see them getting a jump. I mean, they're only 12% away or so from getting in. So that's especially with all the votes available now, like that's a reasonable like jump that could be made. Yeah. Moxley, I think, could also jump. I think he could end up being like the leader in the this year coming up because he's still so prominently featured, right? Yeah. And adding to his case every year. But also, like we brought up, like when we're talking about Kane, we brought up, oh yeah, the Shield's first pay-per-view match was against Kane back in 2012. So like by the time the voting rolls around this year, it's going to be like literally 14 straight years of this guy on like prominent national television, right? Like that is not a short career at all. And he's still like at his peak and adding to that career. So he's just accomplished so much already, and in so many different places. WWE, AEW, and then he was the IWGP champion in New Japan and got really over in New Japan when he did the G1, back in 2019. Yeah. So he gets over everywhere he works, makes it to the top. Becomes the world champion. So yeah, I just think he's at least a lock for me. I don't understand why anyone wouldn't vote for him at this point. So yeah, those are the only really two, just Mox and the Briscoes, I think might go in, but I'm really interested to see kind of where everybody else shakes out, like who makes some big jumps, or maybe some of the new people, like kind of where they land. Cause I would expect Batista to hang around, right?
I agree.
The other three, I'm not sure. Like Gunther might be a too soon situation. Kane and Booker T, obviously they fell off before the other time they were on, so that could happen again. But Batista, I have no idea. Like he could be like, barely over 10%, or, I could see him coming in, somewhere in the 30s or maybe even 40, and then potentially going from there. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see, with all those votes available, who makes a leap this year.
Yeah, I'm fascinating. And I think you brought up a great point that, with 3 people going in last year and assuming everyone used all 6 of their votes, it's sort of a question of this year more than any year, especially with this category. It feels like it's a question of who is the most likely candidate that got left off of a majority of people's ballots last year. There's a lot of people that got votes, but who is someone that's just like, I'll wait a year or something like that, or let's see how this turns out or something, or just let's see how Mercedes loses all of her titles, or let's just see how Boxley wraps it all up with the Death Riders. Because at the time last year voting, it was like, I don't know about the Death Rider stuff.
Well, it was right after All In, so I do think people are like, well, okay, it was fresh off that.
I'm thinking 2 years ago.
Yeah. So I do think people were probably like, oh, is this kind of it for him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is this it for him, like on top? But then, over the past year, he's still, he hasn't been like the world champion again, but he's working on top or like close to the top and still heavily featured. And honestly, he's doing better work over the past year than he did during his world title run. So
yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So I think again, another strong year without anyone. I just don't see like strong arguments for anyone being a better candidate than him strongly. Like maybe the Briscoes, I guess I could see that, right? But outside of that, I think, and even then I think his drawing is enough that he should be the top candidate. But anyway, so those are the 3 I'm voting for: Mox, Joe, and the Briscoes. Hopefully they all go in, but we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll certainly see indeed. A fascinating category this year. Adam, thank you so much for coming on to the ballot once more. Always a great time chatting with you about the Hall of Fame and about terrible candidates, I guess is what I'm trying to say there. Adam, give us the old classic ending. Got any plugs for the people at home?
Yeah, so I haven't written anything for Voices of Wrestling in a little while, but I do have something I'm working on around what happens to wrestlers after they're released or they leave WWE. Like, where do they go? Do they stay active or not? And then also, out of those wrestlers that leave WWE, how many of the pure like performance center trainees actually keep wrestling after that? So because of all the releases that happened over the past month or so, I've been digging into that. So I've got the data now, just actually have to write the column itself, but hopefully by the time this comes out, it'll be out not too long after that.
Yes, this will be released probably on June 10th.
Yeah.
So you got 2 weeks to figure it out, Adam.
All right. I'll get it done before then. So search for that. I'll say, if you're listening to this, search for that column. It should be out.
If it's out, it's in the description. Well, I guess I'll say that much. And maybe I can pester Rich to edit it once I do that. I doubt it. Adam, perfect as always. I love chatting with you. Like I said, thank you everybody for listening to this month's bonus episode, I guess, technically, of The Ballot. Thank you again for all the kind wishes of me and The Ballot joining Voices of Wrestling. June, I guess special news for folks at home. We are probably going to have 2 episodes. This will be the first episode of June. We'll have another episode in June as well. That's the plan. I don't like saying the guest or who the topic is, but we have another wrestler. Looks like we might be going back to the rest of the world. You can probably figure out from there based on who we've already talked about this season. But we have a guest already lined up, and that will probably be another episode coming out in June. There'll be another episode that comes out in July, and maybe a bonus episode there. I still have to figure out the guest. And then we got an episode in August and a special yes from a special person for an episode in August. So that's all I will say. I'll keep it hush-hush because I do not like discussing these things in case they fall through the cracks. Outside of that, basically what I'm trying to say is we got a lot of rest of the season here before the Hall of Fame officially starts voting. So stay tuned for The Ballot. We'll be having a lot more episodes, a lot more conversations, probably 2 a month for the next couple of months. So stay tuned for that. That's my hope. That's my goal. And then probably September, October is when ballots will start rolling out and people will start voting, and we'll start that discussion. And until then, enjoy your professional wrestling, everybody. We'll talk to you next time. Have a good one. Bye. The Ballot Podcast was recorded and produced by myself, Ryan Knightsey, as part of the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network. Please rate, subscribe, and most importantly, review the show wherever podcasts are found. To continue the conversation, please leave us a message at 9495-BALLOT or 949-522-5568. You could also join the VOW Discord and join us in the Ballot channel. Have a good day, and we'll talk to you next time on The Ballot.
Hello, do you like New Japan Pro Wrestling? Are you a Shin Nihon freak? If so, check out the Super J-Cast with Joel and Damon on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network.
And even if you fucking hate New Japan Pro Wrestling, listen to the Super J-Cast anyway. Not just for our great show reviews, analysis, and pastrami sandwiches, but there's also usually some dick jokes somewhere in the obligatory opening 30 minutes of absolute nonsense we chat about every single week. That's the Super J-Cast for all the best talk about New Japan Pro Wrestling, crisps, and pornography.